I pulled into the departure drop-off lane at Portland International and watched my wife wheel her carry-on through the sliding glass doors without looking back once. Not once. My 7-year-old daughter was in the back seat. She had been quiet the whole drive, which was not like her. Nora, that is what we call her, though her full name is Eleanor, after my mother. She is the kind of kid who narrates her own life out loud. She comments on billboards. She asks why the sky turns orange at sunset and then answers her own question before you can open your mouth. Silence from Nora is not normal. Silence from Nora means something is wrong. I put the truck in drive and checked the mirror. She was staring out the window, hands folded in her lap, looking like a tiny old woman carrying a secret, too heavy for her frame. "You okay back there, sweetheart?" I asked. She looked at me in the mirror. Her eyes were wet. "Daddy," she said quietly, "can we not go home tonight?" I laughed, not a real laugh. The nervous kind, the kind you do when something hits you wrong, but you do not want to admit it yet. "What do you mean? It's almost bedtime." She shook her head. "Please, Daddy, can we go to Grandpa Stan's instead?" My father-in-law lived 40 minutes in the wrong direction. I had a 7 a.m. job site call in the morning. I was 63 years old and my knees hurt from standing on concrete floors all week. My name is Robert Calloway, and I had spent 35 years building Calloway Construction from a 2-man crew with a second-hand dump truck into one of the largest commercial contractors in the Pacific Northwest. I was tired in the particular way that only men who built things with their hands for 4 decades understand. "Nora, baby, why would we go to Grandpa Stan's on a Tuesday night?" She looked back at the window and said nothing for a long moment. The airport traffic moved around us. Taxis, Radesh shares, a couple arguing over luggage. "I heard Mom on the phone," she finally said. Her voice was so small. "This morning I was in the hallway and she didn't see me." My hands tightened on the wheel. "What did you hear?" "She said." Nora stopped. She pressed her lips together the way she does when she is trying to decide whether to tell me something. Then she made up her mind. She said the plan was already in motion. She said tonight was perfect because you'd be alone. She looked at me in the mirror again. "Daddy," she sounded scary, not like Mom. She sounded like someone I didn't know. "I want to tell you I stayed calm. I want to tell you I was rational, measured, paternal. But the truth is that something cold moved through my chest like a wave of groundwater, and I gripped that steering wheel until my knuckles were white. My wife, Sandra, 41 years old, 10 years younger than me. We had been married for 9 years. I had adopted Nora from my wife's first relationship. Nora had never known her biological father. I thought Sandra and I were solid. I thought we were good. I had been feeling unwell for a few months. Dizzy spells, fatigue that wouldn't lift, a dull ache behind my eyes that my regular doctor kept attributing to blood pressure and the general insults of being over 60. I had assumed he was right. I merged onto I-25 heading away from our house in Lake Oswego. I did not go toward my father-in-law's. I pulled off at a rest area near the Clackamas River and put the truck in park. The hazard lights clicked in the dark. "Tell me exactly what you heard," I said. "Everything, even if it doesn't make sense." Nora leaned forward against her car seat harness. She spoke in a low, careful voice, the way children do when they understand that what they are saying matters. She told me her mother had been on the phone in the upstairs bathroom, door closed, shower running. Nora had woken up early and gone to the hallway for a glass of water. She heard her mother's voice through the door. She heard 2 things clearly. The first, "He keeps getting weaker. It's been 3 months and he still doesn't suspect anything." The second, "1 more week, maybe less, then we file and everything transfers." Then nothing else because Nora had gone back to her room and stayed there until breakfast. I sat in that rest stop for a long time, long enough for a family in a minivan to pull in, use the facilities, and leave. Long enough for the sky to go fully dark and the motion sensor lights to flick on over the parking area. 3 months, weaker, the dizziness, the fatigue. My doctor, the one Sandra had encouraged me to switch to 2 years ago, a younger man, very professional, she had said, better equipped than old Dr. Myers, who kept telling me it was stress and blood pressure and age. 1 more week, then we file and everything transfers. I had a will. Everything went to Sandra and Nora jointly. The business, the properties, the accounts. If I died, Sandra controlled all of it until Nora turned 25. I thought about the way Sandra moved around the kitchen in the mornings, how she always made my coffee herself, how she had started making it stronger over the past few months, she said, because she could tell I needed the energy, how she would wait until I had taken at least a few sips before she turned away. I thought about the words already in motion. I reached back and took Nora's hand. Her fingers were cold. "You did the right thing telling me," I said. "I am so proud of you." "Are you scared, Daddy?" I looked at my daughter, 7 years old, the bravest person in the car. "Not anymore," I said. "Not with you looking out for me." Before I left that parking lot, I needed to know one thing. I called my oldest friend, a man named Curtis, who I had known since we were both 19 and broke and working night shifts at a lumber yard. Curtis had gone on to become a pharmacist. He ran 2 CVS locations in Portland and knew more about what drugs could do to the human body than most doctors I had ever met. I called in from my cell phone, keeping my voice low even though Nora had drifted off against the window. "Curtis," I said when he picked up, "I need you to tell me something, and I need you to not panic." He did not panic. He listened. I told him the symptoms. The months of fatigue, the dizziness, the way my hands had started trembling when I held a coffee cup. I told him about the stronger coffee. I told him what my daughter had heard. There was a silence on the other end. "Bobby," he said. "He only ever calls me Bobby when something is serious. I want you to go to Legacy Emmanuel tonight. Not your regular place, not where your regular doctor practices, a completely different system. Go to the ER and tell them you need a comprehensive tox panel. Blood and urine. Don't tell them anything else first, just insist on it." What am I looking for? Another silence. "There are substances that accumulate slowly, tasteless, odorless, undetectable if you're not looking. The symptoms you're describing. Bobby, I don't want to say it out loud yet. Just go get the test." I drove Nora to Curtis's house first. His wife, a warm woman named Bea, took one look at Nora's sleep against my shoulder and asked no questions. She just held the door open and carried my daughter inside. I drove to Legacy Emmanuel alone. I will not tell you I sat calmly in that waiting room. I will tell you I sat there for 3 hours watching a television mounted in the corner play a cooking competition on mute, and I thought about every morning for the past 3 months. Every cup of coffee, every glass of juice Sandra had poured for me, every vitamin supplement she had started buying and setting out beside my plate without me asking. "For your energy, sweetheart, you need to take care of yourself." The ER physician was young, a woman with tired eyes and efficient hands. When I told her I wanted the comprehensive tox panel and why, she looked at me for a long moment before she said anything. Then she said, "We're going to take this seriously." The results came back before dawn. Thallium, a heavy metal, historically used in rat poison, now controlled but not impossible to obtain. It accumulates in soft tissue over weeks and months. It mimics the symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, cardiovascular disease, general age-related decline. If you are 63 years old and your doctor is not looking for it, he will not find it. He will tell you it is blood pressure. He will tell you it is stress. He will tell you it is age. The doctor who reviewed my results that morning was not young. He was a toxicologist they had called in, a compact man with wire-rimmed glasses and a deliberate way of speaking. He sat down across from me in a small consultation room and folded his hands on the table. "Mr. Calloway," he said, "I want to speak plainly with you. The levels in your blood suggest chronic exposure over a period of at least 2 to 3 months. This is not accidental. This is not environmental. Someone who had regular access to your food or drink administered this to you over time." I looked at the wall behind him. "Will I be okay?" I asked. "We can treat this," he said. "Chelation therapy. You'll need to be monitored, but yes, if you had waited much longer, we would be having a different conversation. 1 more week, maybe less." I closed my eyes. I want to be clear about what I did next because it matters. I did not go to the police immediately. I know that sounds wrong, but you have to understand something about the way Callaway Construction is structured. My wife was listed as co-owner of the company on paper. A decision I had made early in our marriage, as a gesture of trust, the kind of gesture you make when you believe in someone. If I walked into a police station that morning and made an accusation, Sandra's attorney could freeze every asset I had while the investigation ran its course. Months, maybe longer. My crews would stop getting paid. 42 employees. I needed proof first, real proof, and I needed to understand who else was involved, because the plan meant there was more than one person. We file meant there was someone else filing. I stayed at Curtis's house. I told Nora I had some work to sort out and then we were going to have a little adventure at Curtis and Bea's for a few days. She accepted this with the particular adaptability of children who have already processed the worst part. I called a man named Philip. No, I need to stop. I am not going to use his real name. I will call him what he called himself in his emails, the consultant. He had done work for me before, years ago during a contract dispute that got ugly. He was not a private investigator in the traditional sense. He was a man who found information. He was expensive, precise, and discreet. I told him what I needed. He told me he would have something within 48 hours. He had something within 24. My wife was not in Seattle for a professional development conference, which is what she had told me. She was at a hotel downtown, Portland, 3 miles from our house. She was in a suite on the 14th floor. She was not alone. The man with her was my brother-in-law, my wife's younger brother. His name was Derek, and I had known him for 9 years, and for 9 years I had lent him money when he asked and given him work on job sites when he needed it, and sat across from him at every Thanksgiving and Christmas and treated him like family because he was family. I had loaned him $60,000 18 months ago to keep his landscaping business afloat. He had looked me in the eye when he took that check and called me the best thing that ever happened to his sister. He was not her brother. The consultant sent me photographs. I will not describe them in detail. I will only say that the photographs made the nature of their relationship unmistakable, and that they had apparently been involved for longer than my marriage had existed. There was also a document, a draft legal filing, a petition for guardianship of Nora based on a claim that I had become mentally incapacitated, citing my health decline as evidence of dementia. If I died, Sandra got the estate. If I became legally incapacitated, she got power of attorney. Derek's name was on the petition as a supporting witness. They had been planning this for a long time, long before they started poisoning me. I think the poisoning was the acceleration, when they realized I was not going to die naturally on the schedule greed requires. I sat with that information for 1 full day. Nora was in the backyard with Bea, helping plant tomatoes, laughing about something. I watched her through the kitchen window, and I thought about the night she grabbed my arm in that truck and told me we could not go home. A 7-year-old girl who chose truth over comfort, who understood that something was wrong before she could name what it was. She saved my life. It is that simple. I started treatment at a private clinic that Curtis arranged, a facility in southwest Portland that handled exactly this kind of case with complete confidentiality. I went every morning and came back to Curtis's house by midday. I felt the difference within a week. The fog was lifting. My hands steadied. I began to feel like myself for the first time in months. While I was getting better, I was also building a case. The consultant installed monitoring equipment at my house, equipment I had legal authority to install since the property was mine. Sandra and Derek were using my house freely, apparently believing I was either dead or too ill to return. They were not careful. People who believe they have already won stop being careful. I heard them in my living room talking about selling the business. Derek wanted to liquidate. Sandra wanted to keep it running under new management, extract the monthly revenue, let it run down gradually. They argued about it the way people argue about furniture. I heard them talk about Nora. That is the part I will not repeat in full. I will only say that what they said about my daughter, about whether she was an asset or a liability in their plan, about whether her attachment to me made her a complication, that is what ended my patience. I had been planning methodically. I had been building the case piece by piece. I had been the controlled, strategic man that 35 years in business had made me. And then I heard my daughter's name spoken in that tone, in my own living room, and something shifted. I called my attorney, not the family attorney who'd worked on our estate documents, but the one I used strictly for business litigation. A woman named Agnes who had won me 2 significant contract disputes and who had a reputation in the Oregon legal community for being, as one opposing counsel had once put it, constitutionally incapable of backing down. I told her everything. I sat in Curtis's kitchen and I told her every single piece of it. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Send me the documentation, all of it. I want to file by end of week." "What are we filing?" I asked. "Everything," she said. "Attempted homicide, aggravated assault, fraud, conspiracy, and the guardianship petition gets annulled before it's ever heard, because the only person with grounds to file guardianship on Nora is you, and you are manifestly competent." A pause. "Robert, are you still receiving treatment?" "Every day." "Good. Keep going. I need you healthy and standing upright when we walk into that courtroom." I will tell you about the morning it ended. Agnes had arranged everything with the Multnomah County DA's office. The evidence was not circumstantial. It was comprehensive medical records, toxicology, the consultant's documentation, recordings from my own property, the draft guardianship filing with Derek's signature on it. The DA's office did not need much convincing. I was in my truck, parked 1 block from my house when the police arrived. Agnes had asked me not to be present. She said it was cleaner that way. She was right, but I was not going to sit in Curtis's kitchen while this happened. I needed to see it. Not out of anger, I was past anger by then. I needed to see it for the same reason Nora had needed to tell me what she heard. Some things need to be witnessed. They went in at 7:45 in the morning. 2 unmarked cars and a patrol unit. I watched from the end of the block. I watched Sandra come out first, in the clothes she wore to sleep, her hands behind her. She looked toward the street and I think she saw my truck. I think she recognized it. She looked away quickly. Derek came out a few minutes later. He was saying something to the officer beside him, loud, insistent, the way people talk when they think there has been a mistake. The talking will fix. It would not fix it. There was no mistake to fix. I did not feel what I expected to feel. I had expected something loud, rage, or grief, or the particular satisfaction of a problem solved. What I felt instead was quiet, a long, specific silence, like the moment after a machine you have been running for months finally shuts down and you realize how much noise you had stopped hearing because you were so used to it. I put the truck in drive and went to pick up my daughter. Nora was eating cereal at Curtis's kitchen table when I came in. She looked up at me, and I must have looked different to her, because she put her spoon down and studied my face for a moment, the way children do when they are reading an adult. "Is it over?" she asked. "It's over," I said. She nodded once, like this was the answer she had been expecting, and then she picked up her spoon and went back to her cereal. "That is my daughter. The legal process took 14 months. I will not walk you through every filing and hearing, because this is not that kind of story. What I will tell you is that Sandra pled guilty to aggravated assault and conspiracy charges and received 12 years. Derek pled not guilty, which meant a trial, which meant the jury heard everything. The recordings, the toxicology, the drafted guardianship petition, 9 years of financial records showing how much I had given him and what he had done with the trust. The jury deliberated for 1 afternoon. They came back with guilty on all counts. He received 15 years. The co-ownership claim on the business was voided. My attorney dissolved it cleanly and permanently. Agnes was exactly as constitutionally incapable of backing down as advertised. I had Callaway Construction back. I had my house back. I had my health back. Mostly the tremors are gone, the dizziness is gone, and my hands are steady enough to hold a level without it lying to me. Most importantly, I had Nora. She is 9 now. She started 3rd grade in September in a school she likes, with a teacher she talks about at dinner with the same enthusiasm she once reserved for cartoons. She is on a youth soccer team, and she scored her first goal in October. And the sound she made, this pure, startled, electric shriek of joy, is a sound I will be hearing for the rest of my life, every time things get hard. We live in a smaller house now, outside the city, near a river. I chose it because it has a large yard and because the kitchen has a window that looks out over the water and because there is a porch where you can sit in the evening and hear nothing but the current and the birds. I wake up in the morning without an alarm. I drink my own coffee, which I make myself, which tastes exactly the way I want it to. I kept the business. I gave my project manager, a man who had been with me for 18 years, a significant ownership stake and a new title. He runs the day-to-day. I consult. I sign off on the large contracts. I take Nora to school in the morning and pick her up in the afternoon. I am not telling you this to make it sound simple. It was not simple. There were nights in that first year when I sat on the porch by the river and felt the weight of 9 years of misplaced trust pressing down on me like a physical thing. There were moments when I looked at Nora and felt something close to guilt, that she had been in the house with those people, that she had learned to carry a secret instead of just being a child, that her mother had looked at her and calculated. But here is what I've come to understand about Nora. She did not carry that secret because she was burdened. She carried it because she is strong. The same strength that made her sit in that back seat, terrified, and speak anyway. That strength is not something those people put in her. It was always there. It was hers. They could not touch it. I will tell you what I tell every man my age who asks me what I learned from this. You can spend your whole life building something, a business, a home, a marriage, and believe that the building itself is proof of your judgment. You can mistake productivity for wisdom. I did. I built walls and poured foundations and thought that because I understood how structures worked, I understood how people worked. I was wrong. The only thing that saved my life was a 7-year-old girl who understood one simple truth, that when something is wrong, you say so, even when you are afraid, even when the wrong thing is wearing a face you love. Listen to your children. I mean that without qualification. Not because they are always right, not because they are infallible, but because children have not yet learned to filter out inconvenient truths, and sometimes inconvenient truths are the only ones that matter. If you are watching this from somewhere in this country tonight and something in this story felt familiar, the slow fog, the person closest to you who keeps telling you it is stress, it is age, it is age, it is nothing. Please listen to that feeling. Please do not do what I did and wait months before taking it seriously. Please do not mistake kindness for safety. Your gut is not dramatic. Your gut is keeping you alive. Mine did, my daughter's did, and we are both, on this particular evening, sitting on a porch by a river in Oregon, and the light is going gold over the water, and she is asking me what I want for dinner, and I am telling her anything she wants. That is the whole story. That is enough. I keep coming back to the moment Nora folded her hands in her lap in that back seat and looked at me like a tiny old woman carrying something too heavy for her frame. She was 7 years old. She had every reason to stay quiet, to protect herself from what the truth might cost, to avoid the confusion and the fear, and the weight of telling a grown man that the person he trusted most was the one he should have been afraid of. And she spoke anyway. That is the thing I have spent the most time thinking about in the 2 years since all of this happened. Not the betrayal itself, not the legal process, not the slow recovery from the poisoning. Those things were brutal, but they were events. They had a beginning and an end. What I keep returning to is the character of that little girl and what it taught me about my own. I had spent 35 years building a company. I thought I knew how to read people. I thought the same instincts that told me which contracts were solid and which subcontractors would cut corners. I thought those instincts protected me everywhere. They did not. I had let comfort make me lazy. I had let familiarity substitute for judgment. I saw what I wanted to see in my marriage for 9 years because seeing something different would have been inconvenient, and I was busy and I was tired. And I told myself that a man who works as hard as I do deserves a home that is simple. The truth is that doing right by the people in your life, being genuinely honest about what you see, even when it frightens you, even when it costs you, that is not something you get to outsource to comfort. Nora did not learn to speak up from a book or a lesson. She did it because she had built the kind of character, even at 7, that chose integrity over ease. Children are not born that way. They become that way from watching the adults around them and deciding, quietly, who they want to be. I failed at that for a while. I stopped paying close attention. I let certain things slide because addressing them would have required a hard conversation I did not want to have. That inattention nearly cost me my life. The willingness to think clearly, to follow a fact wherever it leads, even when the destination is somewhere you would rather not go. That is not just an intellectual exercise, it is a form of self-respect. And when you abandon it, the people who want to take advantage of you can feel that vacancy from a mile away. What pulled me through was not rage, and it was not luck. It was the decision, once I knew the truth, to be methodical rather than reactive, to gather the evidence, to find the right attorney, to get healthy first, because you cannot fight anything from a hospital bed. Endurance is not the same as stubbornness. Endurance is choosing, every single morning, to keep going when stopping would be easier. I did that. Nora did that in her own way, carrying a secret in silence for weeks before she found the moment to tell me. We are sitting on the porch right now, the two of us, watching the light go off the river, and she is asking me what I want for dinner. She does not remember most of this as a tragedy. She remembers it as the time she helped her dad. That is the story she tells. I think she has the right version.